Since the time civilization began, we tried to classify the organisms around us. This leads to biological classification. Aristotle was the first one to do this classification, but in earlier days we tend to classify on the basis of needs, that is food, shelter and clothes, whereas the scientific basis of classification was absent. But then came Linnaeus and he gave us two kingdom system of classification, and the two kingdoms were animal and plantae. But various other organisms which were not falling in either kingdom were yet left out to be classified. The major drawbacks or anomalies of the two kingdom system were no difference between eukaryotes and prokaryotes. There was no distinguishing between the eukaryotes and prokaryotes. There was no difference or there was no differentiation between unicellular and multicellular organisms, as well as there was no differentiation between photosynthetic and non-photosynthetic organisms. So, later on, upon more complex scientific characters, R.H. Whitaker in 1969 gave us 5 kingdom classification system. The basis of classification were cell structure, thallus organization, mode of nutrition of organisms, their reproduction, how they reproduce, as well as phylogenetic relationships. And the 5 kingdoms given to us were monera, protista, fungi, plantae and animalia. Earlier, certain bacteria which show photosynthetic autotrophic mode of nutrition were put into plants, but now these have also been classified and properly categorized. Let us begin with kingdom monera. Kingdom monera, the sole member is bacteria. Bacteria is majorly classified depending upon their shape. You can see here in diagram coccus, rod shaped, coma shaped or spiral. These bacteria usually reproduce through fission, and in unfavorable conditions they reproduce through spores, and there is another method in which they reproduce sexually, as you can see in diagram, through a old primitive method of DNA transfer. Bacteria show lots of metabolic diversity, that is they show autotrophic as well as heterotrophic mode of nutrition. The first member in monera is Archaebacteria. This bacteria is known to be found in the extreme harsh environment. There is a difference of its cell wall that makes it possible to survive in harsh environment. The example is methanogens. Methanogens are usually found in the gut of animals like cow, goat, etc. And methanogens are also known or helpful in producing biogas. Eubacteria or true bacteria. This bacteria is having chlorophyll in them and also referred to as red-blue algae. In this bacteria, the first is cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria shows photosynthesis, that is it makes it food through photosynthesis. Next is Anabaenia, which shows chemosynthetic mode of nutrition in which they oxidize inorganic substances and energy so released is utilized by them to make their own ATPs. Next is heterotrophic. Decomposers comes in this category. And the third one is mycoplasma. These are the only living organisms which are present without cell wall and they can even survive in the absence of oxygen. So here you can see the kingdom monera includes bacteria, then you will see shape of bacteria, their mode of nutrition, their method of reproduction, and when you categorize Archaebacteria, Eubacteria further contains photosynthetic, chemosynthetic and heterotrophic, and then mycoplasma.